Welcome back to Startup or Shut Up, the podcast where we turn tough moments into turning points. I'm your host, Colin Fraley. Today's guest knows exactly what it's like to have life throw you a curveball. After getting fired, she turned that setback into a multi-million-dollar success story, building a 1,500 member paid community for freelance writers, selling it for life-changing money, and now helping others to do the same through Community Growth Academy. We're talking about entrepreneurship, resilience, life on the road in her RV, and what it really takes to build a business that gives you freedom. Before we dive in, if you're enjoying the show, take a second right now to subscribe, comment, and share the episode with a friend who's chasing their own dream. I'm working hard to improve every episode for you, and we've got some big in-person interviews coming soon. And a quick plug, this episode is sponsored by PeerFounder. If you join now, you'll be one of the first 1,000 users to get lifetime access to the platform, where founders and funders come together to launch bold ideas. All right, let's jump in with Carol Tice.
Hey, excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it and talk about your early career foundations. You've been a business journalist with bylines in places like Forbes and Entrepreneur. What lessons from reporting carried over into entrepreneurship for you?
Well, my first business was basically the marketing was my blog. I basically wrote my way, to an email list of people. And in the early days, I was posting like 5 days a week, So I already knew how to produce a lot of, high value stuff in a short time. So that was super helpful. And, I want to say that my vision for the blog was always like more like it was a magazine quality than blogging. This is like back in 2008 when there was a lot of kind of junk blogging going on. And I was always like, this should be almost like it could be a print magazine in terms of how it's sourced and linked and, we're proving our facts. And so kind of bringing that journalism vibe to it was definitely helpful. When your audience is
That's awesome.
writers, like they respond to that.
Yeah, their expectation is a bit more echelon in the writing. So that totally makes
Right,
sense. That's
right.
really cool. And then at what moment did you realize you wanted to move from writing about business to running one for yourself as well?
Well, just I got fired. I was working at a business journal and I had a dream team of editors who I learned so much from. I thought I would stay there forever. I loved it. I thought my toddlers were going to get their college scholarships. I had no vision that I was going to leave. And then the editorial team turned over and that party was over. And I was the most highly paid reporter, I believe, on staff, and they were going to get rid of me from day one. And I knew it was ending. And, I thought I'll get another job and I'll freelance while I'm, looking around for that. But like freelancing went really well. And then I kind of dug into it and went, I think I could ramp this to more money than I was making on salary, and did during the 28, 9, 10 downturn. During that time, I also discovered that blogging had started happening while I was, being a staff writer for 7 years, and I was like, "Oh, like, I just have the publish button, I'm in." And it was kind of the rise of content mills and writers really getting ripped off and writing for tiny money, and that made me super angry, and I wanted it to stop, and
Mm.
that was really what drove my blog. I was like, "I need to just write some advice, and then everyone will stop using content mills, and, I will save the freelance writing niche." And of course, they thrive today, but I was able to, help many people get hip to their value as a writer and to kind of get out of that, what I call the underworld of freelance writing, and, find better clients. And as it grew, I was thinking, well, my initial idea was I'll write a book and it'll sell 1 million copies and I'll be rich. And that was my idea. And then I joined a paid community for bloggers.
Mm.
So I want to learn blogging best practices, make my blog better.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I got in it, I was like, "Oh my God, I love this. This is amazing. I'm learning so much." And there's nothing like this for freelance writers that I know of, and that there really should be. And so I
Mm.
kind of sat with that. I'm not a technical person, so I had no idea how you would physically make that happen. And back then there weren't platforms like School and Circle and Kajabi. It was like hand coding Word plugins together and stuff. And so I just kind of didn't know how much it would cost, how I would get over that hump. And then I went to the late Liz Strauss's successful online business SobCon conference in Chicago and got very inspired to just come home and do it. So that was sort of my first big, I need to stop talking about I should open a
Hmm.
community for freelance writers someday. That'd be good. And I needed to do it. And about 90 days after I came home from that, it was up. So I actually stole the tech person from the community I had joined on blogging and got him to set up my site. So like I knew one person I could ask and got him to physically make it so that, membership software would talk to forum software would talk to sign up pay cards and they'd all talk to each other and I could have a community. While that was being built, I was surveying my audience. I had maybe 1,000 blog subscribers, not a giant list, but a highly engaged list. And so I built the community off my survey of, what do you want in the community? What would you pay for that? How often should we do what? In what format do you like trainings? Just built what they said would interest them and then said that thing you wanted is available now, you can have it. And that's what I call pre-marketing, where you kind of build in public and suck your people into caring and getting involved. What do you think of the name of this? Should it be Freelance Writers Den apostrophe S or S apostrophe or no apostrophe? 100 comments. Writers care about that stuff. And meanwhile, they're getting involved in and they're finding out about it. It's like this kind of unmarketing form of marketing where you're involving people in your launch. And then by the time it launches, they know all about it. They know they want it. They know what's going to be in it because you're doing what they told you to put in it. And
Hmm.
it's pretty easy to launch. So that sort of was my first thing. And I think I'm having trouble remembering the timing of this, but either shortly before that or shortly after is when my husband developed a seizure disorder. And we had like just adopted that unexpected third kid. And
Hmm.
a lot was going on, and it was the recession. So it was hard to sell cars, which is what he was doing. And I just said, I have this weird feeling that if you stayed home with the kids and did more childcare right now, I just see opportunity here that if I could do this, really go harder at this, I could replace your income with this. And then you could maybe get into a career you like better or whatever. And we needed someone home with the kids at that time anyway, because we were toddler transitioning a former foster kid. It's hard to describe like the feeling I had back then. It was like I felt pulled by an invisible rope that was like coming out of my stomach of like, go this direction. This is what you should be doing.
Mm.
Uh, I would literally do my freelance writing during the day, the school bus would roll up, I would do my kids dinner, put them to bed, and then I would work from 8 to midnight on
Hmm.
Freelance Writers Den, on building this community. And like for about a couple of years, I didn't really see a TV show or go to a dinner party or watch a movie or, I was like, The Walking Dead, what is that? I had absolutely no idea what was going on in popular culture. I was in a like just
Hmm.
building it.
Hmm.
It was an
Yeah.
intense time, but my instinct turned out to be way more than right. It made more money than as a beat reporter I could have ever imagined making.
Yeah, that's pretty inspiring, and that's so smart with your pre-marketing to be able to bring your customers together because they have this sense of building it with you, and they have that buy-in. Super great advice for anyone that's listening.
And I wish that was what most people did, but it isn't. I have, since starting the community I have now that helps community builders, I have talked to so many people. I have looked at so many communities where someone went off in a corner and built a community in a vacuum, and they weren't audience building. They weren't bringing anyone along with them, getting anyone invested in it. And they're like, and why is there no member? And it's because you probably built something that isn't even the thing they need. You built the wrong thing. You didn't do competitive research, which I make all my people do. You didn't know what else was out there and what they're charging and what they're offering and how you would be different and fill a niche that's maybe empty. And they just kind of get a idea in their head. And I used to see this in the tech startup world as a reporter in Seattle in
Hmm.
1999, 2000 at the Business Journal. People are just like, we're creating a thing. And I'd be like, and what do prospects have to say about the thing? And they'd be like, oh, we haven't talked to anybody about it yet, but we're building it. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And all of these things died, you know. So there's a thing where when we have a great idea, when we feel like we have a good idea for a business, it's like we're in this happy little bubble of like, I have an idea, you know,
Hmm.
and we don't want anyone to be able to pop the bubble, and we're like maybe not in a headspace where we're able to take in critique of like, well, what if it were kind of this way instead of the way you're thinking? And it's like entrepreneurs need to open their minds and go, okay, I have an idea. I have expertise about X, and I think I could build something like this. And for God's sake, go out and market test it and ask some people, would you buy this? If so, how much? What color should it be? Like ask them, do the market research on the ground, and your launch will be more successful.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how would you recommend a founder in order to go and find their target audience? Because, like, specifically, my paid points is entrepreneurs like to hang out, or aspiring entrepreneurs like to hang out on Reddit, but you can't self promote, and there's a lot of moderation that's incorporated with that to ask all these questions within the design space. So can you kind of share
Hmm.
like how you found your first 100 followers or customers before you even built,
Through the
and how you
blog.
brought them over? Okay.
S-
Yep.
Just through the blog and understanding how to put keywords in headlines. At the time, there wasn't a ton out. There were a few people kind of ahead of me in the freelance writing space, but there wasn't tons of people like there is now. And what happened was I was discovered on a virtual bar stool at Schrafft's uh, by someone who was an editor, a copy blogger who's still a mentor of mine, John Morrow, and he's a smart blogger and is his platform and many other things. And he retweeted one of my posts. And that was a big inflection point in traffic. And, I think he saw how much more journalistic and pro it how I was doing it. And he was like, this is something people need, and retweeted it, and that brought in a lot of people. And then I ended up writing for Copy Blogger, which was a great situation at the time, and I got some more followers from there. And yeah, I mean, what John teaches is that the next generation of bloggers isn't born or grown, it's appointed by the current top bloggers. So,
Interesting.
getting a few key mentions from people who already have a big list, send some people to your list and you start rolling.
Got it. Got it. So definitely the influencer market is
Yeah.
where kind of things really make things grow. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and I did not hang out on Reddit, and, I don't know. I know people who have spent so much time answering questions on Reddit and have never gotten anything out of it.
Totally. Totally.
Not my channel. At the time, Twitter was big, and I was doing a lot on Twitter and on
Cool.
LinkedIn.
Very, very cool. Thank you, Carol. And then what surprised you most when moving from journalist to entrepreneur?
Hmm, that's a real interesting question. The thing is I'd been
Hmm.
covering business,
Uh-huh.
so
So that's
I'd
nice
seen
and
a lot of
transferable.
things go under and go big
Mm.
and change their business model and pivot and exit. And so I knew a lot about the business cycle, and that was sort of what was different about me in the freelance writing space, is that I was bringing that business discipline to people who are not very business like, who are, I write,
Hmm.
I'm following my muse, I write for whoever asks me, who like had no like, you need to market your business if you'd like to be consistently working in this and not have feast or famine. And yeah, I don't know. Big surprises. Um, I don't know.
No,
I don't know
have
what
you stumped
surprised me. I
already?
think I don't know. I wanna say that what I learned is that you have to get out of your own head and really be just so customer focused all the time. And, we would continually survey our members. We're thinking about these 3 classes coming up. Which one should we teach? They say this one. That's the one we're doing. To just keep listening to customers, to not be like, okay, success, ding, I know what I'm
Mm,
doing now. No, you still don't. And the big secret sauce was exit surveys of people who quit. We would be like, we'll give you another free month to
uh-huh.
stay in if you'll tell us why you're leaving. If you'll fill out our survey and tell us about, is it the price point? We didn't answer your questions, what? And we got very useful information out of that that really helped ramp up membership. Writers, producing video lessons, and like the writers would like a transcript they could skim. So when we added that, that was a big retention thing. We really, we everything we built was from listening to members, to trying to stay kind of egoless and out of your own head about what you think they want, and just keep asking, you know, just like, I don't know if I knew how constantly you have to keep doing that.
Really. Yeah, that's really wonderful advice. And then out of curiosity too, because you're writing for business and you have seen all these startups go really big and then just fade away. What would you say are the top 3 indicators of a super successful startup?
Well, I think I actually ghost wrote a book for the head of a venture fund, and I think he would say past success at a previous startup is, you may have noticed when you read funding announcements that they're usually funding somebody who they funded
Yes.
before at
Yes.
some other thing that they sold to Google for bazillions. So a
Yes.
track record of having built before, they love that because you've already made mistakes
Yes.
somewhere else, and you're not going to do it on
Yep.
my dime. Um,
Yep.
it's always hard to get that kind of first set of buy-in because you're unproven.
Mm,
They continue relentless focus on customers and what they want and how that's evolving and changing, and they're meeting that, they're staying ahead of that, they're not resting on their laurels, getting complacent. We've seen so many brands do this where they're kind of stuck in the past and become these legacy companies in, fast food, in a lot of spaces where they just kind of don't seem to keep up with where people are at and what people want. Yeah, and other than that, I'd say innovation, trying to that effort to see around corners, develop new things, always thinking what's the next thing. I'd say I was weak on that. I was like, I like this. I got this community. It's rolling, I'm doing my thing. And everyone was like, you need a $10,000 upsell product out of this. And I was like, I don't know. Sounds like a lot of work. It's just, my thing is that I came out of journalism and not out of marketing, and a lot of people who start digital businesses come out of marketing backgrounds. And
Interesting.
it's just so much more work to sell a $10,000 product than a
Hmm.
$25 a month product. And I liked
Totally.
not doing a lot of, I didn't want to do 2-hour grind video, sales videos that you do 5 times a week for different audiences, and beg people to sell your thing, and you've got to buy it right in this thing. We've all been in these, and I just consider
Hmm.
them
High
torture.
pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, I put on all that pressure, and
Hmm.
you have to deliver all this stuff, and I don't know. I like the community model, the using mass adoption to drive prices down. You still make a great living. They get something that seems like incredibly valuable at an incredible
Hmm.
bargain. I like the dynamic of it, and I'm getting to help thousands of people instead of like if I were a one-to-one coach on in my space, maybe I'm finding 12, 15 clients, 30 clients in a year. I think we helped 14,000 people in the 12 years I did that. So I was looking for bigger impact, less
Hmm.
marketing, and yeah, just and a better success rate, because when you one-on-one coach, you're up here, they're down there. There's no one with them on the journey. And I had some successes as a one-on-one coach. It's not like it didn't work, but then I did small group and it worked better. And then I was like,
Mm.
yeah, it needs to be everybody together. Having the peer support is the magic that makes people actually stick with
Hmm.
the thing, do the thing. And I'm one of those coaches who like my people to actually succeed. Like I gather a lot of coaches kind of
Hmm.
don't care, just want to pick up their check. But I actually wanted them to get better jobs and earn more money and have a better life, and
Hmm.
this was the way, to do that more consistently. So,
Definitely. Those success stories are really, really cool. Do you have one that in mind that really sticks out to you? That really you were the big impact in your community? impacted their life and changed it completely?
Oh my God, so many. But one who I recently saw again in Paris, where she lives now with her daughter.
Did you
She
run into her on
joined.
the street or
No, no,
did you
I
meet up with her?
set up a time to meet with her.
Cool.
But my husband and I were in Europe for almost a month in this spring. And when she joined, actually, the upsell I did come up with for Freelance Writers Den, which was a mid-career writers coaching program, she came in, and like the week she came into the program, she was pregnant when she came in. Her husband was diagnosed with cancer and he died shortly after their baby was born. Yeah. And she went away for about a year and then she came back and did the program and made so much money, ramped her income to like 150K type income, which for, I think the average freelance writer makes like 20K, maybe if they're lucky. And yeah, there's a lot of low earners in the space who don't run it like a business. She doesn't even freelance write anymore now. She's like a convener of a convention on developer
Mm,
tools, and like her career has just exploded, and it allowed her to come out of, such a tragic situation and build a great life for her daughter. Literally, we had lunch, we had like brunch by the sand, and she was like, "You changed my life." And
uh,
that's what I'm in it for, is being able
that's
to
so cool.
really create life transformation. People got just got goosebumps telling that
Me
story again.
too.
Being able to find right livelihood for people, I've learned this is my through line, is that I like to help people make money. And for me as a Jew, that is holy work. Helping people obtain income is very sacred work. Um, and back in the old days, back in the shtetl, if you lost your job, you went and told the rabbi, and the rabbi put down the holy Talmud he was studying and went and started knocking on doors. Hey, Shmuley lost his job. Do you have anything for him?
How cool.
Helping people eat is
Huh?
important,
Yes,
and is like if people can't sustain themselves, society falls apart. You have too
totally.
many unemployed people, as you know, it's very concerning for society. So, this work to me is just close to my heart in a lot of ways.
Definitely. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're kind of in a precarious situation again because AI is just taking over a lot of intro jobs. So Gen Z's
Yes.
graduating with a worthless degree that they feel like, and their unemployment rate is 14%, which is
Yeah.
really
Yeah. And it's a bad problem. Yeah.
hmm
So, yeah, for me, being able to take people who were making like 10 grand a year as writers and have them make 70 or 100. Yeah, it was so wonderful. It was it
Hey, quick pause before we go on. If you're vibing with this conversation, hit the subscribe button right now. Seriously, it takes 1 second and it helps us keep bringing you bigger guests, better sound, and way more inspiration. All right, back to the show. Yes.
Why I Flunked Retirement by Carol Tice. Um I really did. I thought I was going to retire, but
I feel
that
like
didn't
you're
happen.
one of those people that loves work gigs.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't know. I thought I would just ghostwrite books, which is my other I still am a writer.
Yep,
And like that would be enough for me, but I really missed it. I missed that being able to influence so many people for the good.
definitely.
Didn't I
Yeah.
didn't think I would get back into it until I had a conversation with John, and
Mm,
he was starting a program to help people launch programs where his team would shoulder much of the work, and he was thinking of me for it as an early guinea pig of it. And I was like, but I can't start another community because I have a non-compete, from selling my freelance writers down. And all I know about is freelance writing. That is what I know, John. And
mm.
he was like, so what did you learn in 12 years of running a paid community? And I was like, paid community? I know all about paid community now, don't I? I love paid community. Paid community is the best business model. I could talk about it all day, And so and then we were off to the races building Community Growth Academy. So that's kind of what happened.
Definitely. Yeah, and
But,
we'll get
I
to
want to
community
say,
growth.
go ahead.
Just wanna, if that's okay. Um, and then so when you first started the steps of starting to create the den from idea to your first 100 members, can you kind of spell out the three different steps that you ended up doing in order to start building that community, that paid community?
Start talking about it. I do the survey, find out what I need to build, hire someone to build it, run a launch campaign. I guess that's 4 things, but that's pretty much what I did. I mean, I'd been building audience around the topic, so I had people to talk to
Definitely. Yeah,
about it,
it's
and if you don't have that, you gotta start by starting to find some way or other that you're gonna be building that.
totally. Yeah, there's a thing with founders that they're like stealth founders and they don't like to share anything about their business. And it's just like, I'm confused.
I think stealth is good for those people who've already built and sold a business to Amazon or,
Mm,
something. That's fine because know you can tap people when you're ready to go live with it, and maybe you don't need to build in public.
hmm
Everybody else, I think, should be building in public. And I don't know, I guess people are afraid they'll look dumb or they'll be embarrassed that people won't like their idea or anything. I know I did a book chapter about the founder of Spanx, and I know, she didn't wanna talk to anyone. She was afraid people would just laugh at her idea. Of like, "What? It's the underwear for women?" Just she did not talk to anyone about it. But she saw a very serious market opportunity that all women's underwear was being designed by men, and
hmm
there was a disconnect there. And I think
Of
she just
course.
felt like her instincts were really strong that there was gonna be a niche for this, and she decided, yeah, she was just gonna spring it on people. It can work, but I think it's an easier launch if you are talking about it to people.
hmm Totally. And then that kind of brings me to my next question as well, with in regards to growth. Did you ever reach a point where you kind of plateaued out on members? Can you kind of talk about
Yes.
that? How you felt, what you did to overcome it, and then the results of that as well.
Yeah, it actually happened twice in the journey of the den. We went to about 500 members pretty organically off of my list and my blog posts and things that were members telling other people about it and affiliates selling it. And I did have a few like affiliates with big audiences, and people were referring people in, and then we seemed to kind of get stuck around 500 members. And I can remember when I thought that would solve all my problems, 500 members. But of course, back then the cost of the back end of doing paid community
hmm
was a lot. It was many thousands. And I was like, yeah, it actually needs to keep growing more. And when I ran that by mentors of mine, they were like, well, it seems like you're open all the time. And so people can quit and feel like they can rejoin whenever they get in the mood. And people are thinking about joining, but they don't join because they know they can join later. And yeah, you kind of want to maybe close the doors. And so that
Interesting.
terrified me as a concept that we would not always be open. But I put on the big girl pants and tried it, and we went to 1,000 members. So we went to a model where we were only open about 4 to 6 times a year for a week at a time, or maybe 10
Interesting.
days. And we would run campaigns. So the thing was that administratively being always open was starting to become a problem
Interesting.
because you're constantly ramping new people and
hmm
orienting new members. And we really needed more energy for serving existing members. So it made sense to me from that point of view. And obviously, the thing you're doing is creating the feeling of exclusivity. This is like
hmm
a successful community. It doesn't need to be always open because, like, we have members and we're rolling.
hmm
And we create these focus time periods where we onboard, a new cohort. We give you each a den docent who's a experienced member who's going to hold your hand and be someone who is not me to orient you. And usually we were kicking off a course at the time we were running that campaign. Sometimes we would just run the den is open, you can join for $25. And other times it would be like, there's a $300 course you can buy into that'll get you in the den. If
Got it.
you're a non-member, this is a chance to get in and take this topic that freelance writers desperately need to know about right now. And that drove us to 1,000, where we also became stuck, and we were stuck there for years. And it wasn't until I got approached about selling it and started looking at the business through the eyes of a buyer and looking at the math of how much I could get, what kind of multiple I could get, that I realized it needed to grow to 1,500 for me to get what I wanted out of the business.
hmm
And I actually hired a business consultant that I met at Danny Eny, a conference Danny Eny put on from Miracy. She was great. She made the observation that over the years, we had started to go in a lot of different directions and we had a lot of
Mm,
different asks going on. I had this upscale mid-career coaching program. So that was nothing to a buyer. That was going to vanish. I am that program. We actually put it in a box and made it a product, a self-serve product, so it could be part of the value of the sale. And so we stopped selling that. And I had another business I had started with another freelance writing coach. I had a joint LLC with her. So sometimes we were selling that stuff over there. And she was like, you got to get rid of all this other stuff. And all roads lead to the end. That's your only ask. So we had become kind of unfocused over time. And yeah, I did all that and we drove to 1,500 members.
that's
And
cool.
so, yeah, bouncing it off other mentors is a
Hmm.
great idea. You don't know what you don't you don't know what's going on in your own business. And we develop like blind spots about how
Hmm.
complex the business is getting and, just are we still on mission with everything?
Hmm.
Because you're just doing it all. You're just doing that, grinding it out every day, putting out fires, doing things,
Totally.
creating your deliverables,
Yeah.
building courses, doing things. And it's hard to step back and go, what does this all look like in the, what is the, what's happening here?
Hmm.
And, really, I don't know if the business would have been sold. It would have been a successful exit without driving it to 1,500 members.
Totally.
That was
Yeah, and
sort of the
it's just
number I needed.
super smart to bring in a consulting person, business mindset in order to help you push that along. Really, really smart.
Yeah.
And so with your model, so it's a community, and so in order for it to thrive, people have to engage, right? Otherwise, it fails. How did you create this engagement? Trying to get people on the platform, whatever your goal was, once a week or multiple or like once a day. And then in addition to that, how did you foster like peer-to-peer support as
Yeah, well, those 2 things are almost kind of the same thing. You want most of the support to be peer support. I actually just created an engagement worksheet for my new community because we were on this topic. Because at this point, I have quite a few members that have launched and are like, "How do I get my people on here?" So the answer is many strategies usually need to be employed at the same time that engage different people. You're running a course and there's homework posts, and you have moderators that have been trained up to work the homework. And we are big fans in my world of pair learning, or in Hebrew, chavruta learning. Now, if you look at pictures of people studying Torah from 100 years ago, what you're going to or today, what you're going to see is rows of people facing each other across the table, learning in pairs together.
well?
So you need that account, or as a lot of people call it, accountability buddies. Someone who you can call once a week and it's like, did you do the homework for this? Or did you take the next step you said you were going to take? Did you do your
Mm-hmm.
marketing you said you were going to do for your business? So we were always matching people up and getting them buddies. We had a weekly water cooler chat kind of engagement question being asked by a moderator. We did some live chat, live text chat bot thing stuff. And just the most important thing is that the founder has to not run around answering every question, sitting on there all day, like answering everything. The more you do that, the more you suck up all the oxygen out of the room, and it is
Mm-hmm.
not having that peer support feel. So as hard as it is, because you're like, oh, I know the answer, you know, you want to kind of lay back and
Mm-hmm.
try and get people from the community to be answering. And eventually, I was not looking at forums really at all. Like I had people who did that and
Mm-hmm.
would tell me if there was something they thought nobody could really answer but me. But generally, yeah, the community needed to take care of itself. And
Become self-sufficient.
you always have lurkers who they're just quietly doing the courseware or whatever, or they're just kind of following along with the
Mm-hmm.
conversations. And there's always lurkers. And I've learned that on school, they don't penalize you for people who don't engage because they're like, hey, they could rear up someday. And in terms of their rankings for discovery,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, no, don't kick them off. It's good to have them. But yeah, you constantly have to be thinking about how to drive that. And paying attention to what does get them engaged.
Mm,
Whether
mhm.
it's like you need to post something ripped from the news headlines that's going on in your space that people might want to talk about. It doesn't always have to be sort of directly relevant to the main point of the community. It could be kind of just something tangential that you think they're all into. Like a lot of writers want to post just writing tips or what book are you reading? Just things to engage that people will get engaged with. Or did you see what happened in the ghostwriting world that I'm in? Did you see that article about Prince Andrew's ghostwriter coming out of the closet and talking about that relationship? And
Uh-huh.
just things that are going on in the space that would bring people in. And we do a weekly newsletter. Did it in the den, do it in my new one, that kind of curates what's going on. Hey, this member over here needs feedback on a worksheet they did. Like, can you guys go take a look? To kind of shine a light places that you're trying to get engagement. So, but it's a multi-pronged effort at all times to, yeah, make sure people are excited and interested and engaged and participating. And luckily, now that I'm on school gamifies that and makes it really easy to reward people for doing it. And
Mm.
so I'm loving that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, thank you. And then out of curiosity too, I could only imagine like during those moments of slow growth where you're just like at 500 and then at 1,000 and different times during your business. How did you keep yourself motivated during these like maybe not so fun times of growing your business?
Well, I mean, the whole experience of having a payroll to me was like tightrope walking across the Grand Canyon. It's just a constant terror. And that was one reason I wanted to sell is I thought, "Oh, I need to get out from under this." I had a staff of like 10 freelancers,
Hmm.
eventually somebody running a job board and moderators and admins who would answer help desk questions and a blog editor. I had a lot of people doing a lot of things. And when you launch a course and you spend their time and it's costing money and you need to make that money back, it's just high intensity, and then you get on a live event and sell it, and it has to work. But I was kinda hooked on it and on the help that we were able the change we were able to make for people, and I was constantly feeling like there was another topic we needed that people needed, and I was their servant, and, like, people needed to learn how to write white papers because they pay well, or how to, market their business on LinkedIn or whatever. I would just the invisible rope was just still kinda pulling me, like, "People need this." And you can give it to them and you should do it and it'll make us some money and keep this, whole crazy clown car rolling, so keep going. And yeah.
Awesome. Great advice. And then still on the den, but looking back, what's one thing you would have done differently?
Oh, hired help sooner. Hired paid help sooner. Tried to do it all myself too long, even though I like have very minimal tech skills. It's like the minute I hired a part-time webmaster and paid them like $500 a month, it was like, oh my God, I have so much time now to do more promotion and do for, you know, yeah, I was too slow to take the risk of taking on expenses in terms of having people help me. Just like
Yeah.
things were pokey for a while. And until I was like, I need helpers. That's what it is.
Hmm. Yeah. It seems like a lot of times founders they want to grab a hold and keep their baby tight, right? And have a really hard time with letting it go and delegating and letting people contribute in certain ways.
Oh my
I
God.
was
I was just ghostwriting for somebody so like that. He's so rich. He is so successful and wealthy. And he's still physically putting on all of his trainings himself and,
wow,
flying all over, and I'm just like, "I don't understand why you're still doing this, or trying to write a
totally.
book together and you never have time and you're canceling our meetings because 'cause you're too
Hmm.
busy," and I'm like, "You shouldn't be doing anything in this business practically at this
Hmm.
point, except, like,
Totally.
maybe there's a weekly meeting you show up at and, make sure things are still on track." I don't really understand why you're so busy still, but yeah, I totally couldn't let go.
Totally. Yeah. He
Yeah.
sounds like he needs a virtual assistant and multiple.
More than one. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And I was just at a networking event a couple of weeks ago too for entrepreneurs, and the founder of MoviePass actually talked about how founders need to offload anytime that someone else can do it for less than $100. Do
Mm,
it, like give it away. Like you're more focused on growing the business
sure.
and
Well,
fundraising.
the criteria I was taught to use is this something you enjoy doing and are good at? And is it something no one else on your team can do?
Hmm.
Those are the things you're supposed to still be doing. Only you can do it. You enjoy doing it. You feel like the ramp to train someone else to do it would not be worth it versus just doing it. Everything else should be someone else, you
Hmm.
know? And but what eventually happened to me was like just physically not no more hours left in the day. I could not physically, I was working 18 hours a day on it. You know, I had to sleep at night. I had to see my children, like
What
there weren't any
sleep?
more
What's
hours
that?
of me. Yeah, I know. There weren't I was doing like 6 hours and a 15-minute power nap was pretty much how I went through this whole phase. And that worked for me, but I was younger then. You hit that point where you
Hmm.
see that you are the bottleneck. There's no more hours in the day that for you don't want to. You want a life. You're starting to be like, I don't want to just work, work, work and never sit and talk to my husband and
Hmm.
like and then you start delegating. Then you're like, okay, what could I most easily spin off that someone else could do that yeah, you shouldn't as a founder, you shouldn't be doing things other people can be doing, especially if there's cash flow to support it. Like invest in the
Definitely.
business. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you have to
And
look at it as an investment and a return.
that liberates you to do the things that really drive the business forward. Yeah. Think
Definitely.
about your business big picture. Innovate. Think
Hmm.
about new ideas. Yeah, that's what all dies when you're doing the everything is the stuff that's going to be the future of the business.
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember where I heard it, but people come up with these aha moments, these wonderful ideas when their brain relaxes in some kind of relaxed state, whether that's meditation, working out, or going to a concert. And if you're not able to do these activities that you enjoy living, right, you're not going to find these next great opportunities because you're just bogged down on tasks that you shouldn't have to
Yeah.
do.
Well, the one thing I did always do, I always call it the secret of my successes. I am, as they say in the Big Lebowski, Shomer effing Shabbos. And so I always did take one full day off the business because the thing is, yeah, if you are never away from it, you're just heading down burnout lane. You have to take time off. Every time I would go on a trip, by the time I was on the plane, I was like scribbling, oh my God, ideas, just that
Mm.
you have to have time away from it. Yeah.
A big shout out to today's sponsor, Peer Founder. If you're a solopreneur, creator, podcaster, or just someone sitting on an idea that you know could take off if you had a little bit of funding, this is for you. Peer Founder is the community powered funding platform built to help you get your first yes and your first $500 to start or grow your business. And here's the cool part: once you successfully pay that back, you unlock access to $2,500, then $7,000 to really blast your business off the ground. No credit checks, no banks judging your past, just people who believe in your vision and want to help you win. So if you're ready to finally back yourself and become your own boss, head over to peerfounder.com. And if you join now, you'll get lifetime access as one of the first 1,000 users. All right, let's get back to the show. Cool. Well, thank you, Carol. Are you ready for your rapid fire round?
Okay. The lightning round. Let's go.
So just whatever quick gut reaction answer, like one word, no overthinking. Coffee or tea? A favorite place you've parked the RV?
Mattole Campground. It's a Bureau of Land Management campground at the top of the Lost Coast in California.
Cool. First big splurge after selling the den.
Buying the RV.
That's really cool.
That and we did some major, like redid our kitchen. We did major home
Mhm.
improvement stuff. Kind of that all happened around the same time. But by deciding we could buy the RV, we bought it for cash.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Cool. That's really
yeah.
cool. Congrats. One book every founder should read.
I'm gonna go with one that was recommended to me it's called Rocket Fuel. It's all about having a number two. It's all about
Mm.
who is your executor. You are not the executor. You need a operations manager person who should do that, and that's how you explode growth at the company.
Cool. I will definitely read into that personally. And then last question, if you had to start over tomorrow, what's the first business you would try?
Well, I kind of started over like yesterday, but I'm in all in on paid community. This is my
Mhm.
model. This is the way I like to do business. So it would probably take that form.
Definitely. Yeah, very cool. Okay, let's jump back out of that, and then we'll kind of talk about business challenges and then your exit. So you scaled the den to 1,500 members, super incredible. But I know running a community at that level isn't easy. What were the toughest operational challenges you faced as a?
Well, one of the magical things, Colin, about paid community is it is not actually more difficult to serve 1,500 members than it is to serve 300.
Mm,
It scales without really a lot of additional admin or energy expenditure. You're kind of doing what you're doing. That's one of the reasons it's great is that it
hmm.
scales without adding to cost in any sort of meaningful way.
Cool.
I mean, it gives you
Yeah.
more budget. I was able to
Yeah.
hire and pay more hot presenters in my space. Just because I knew I had the budget. If it didn't pay off, I would have the cash flow to do it.
That's cool. Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
what I
Thank you.
was doing when we hit 1,500 members was cleaning the business up for sale because I did not really build it as a saleable asset. I had that idea in the back of my mind because 'cause I'd covered startup and M&A, but I didn't
Hmm.
really I'd never been through it, and I didn't really know what you have to do for buyers. I didn't know what buyers would wanna know. Until someone approached me and I was like, "Oh, what do you want to know?" Yes, I had no interest in selling at the first time they first approached me, but I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, send me your worksheet I have to fill out and everything," and that's when I learned about things like, I need to be doing monthly profit and loss statements. I wasn't doing that. I was like, "Life's great. I fill out my taxes and I'm making lots of more money than I ever dreamed, and I bought a five-bedroom house on Lake Washington." Uh, and I'm the only name on the mortgage.
Yeah.
None of my husband's income was used in the purchase, and, I think life is good. I'm not doing monthly P&Ls. What the hell is that?
Hmm.
Accounting, blah, So, yeah, I had to hire some accountants and start doing that,
Hmm.
and just we started looking at where I was in the branding of the business. I mean,
Hmm.
my blog, the logo was like a cartoon me, so that had to go. So I was in that whole process of taking myself more and more out of the business,
Got it.
where it started to say, "Our founder, did this and that," instead of like, "I'm in here all the time,"
Hmm.
and hiring more experts to present who weren't me. I'd say in the final years, I presented less and less and or co-presented, and because you want to show that like you're not the only person who can teach this stuff. And so there was a lot of steps to do. We didn't have an operations manual. How do we do things? How do we open the den and close it? How do we launch a course? Where are all the past campaign emails hiding and logos and graphics? And so we started, pulling all of that stuff together so that, it was basically a saleable business. That was
Hmm.
what went on. And then I got approached by a broker. Excuse me. And I'd been approached by brokers, but I got approached by one who I thought could actually sell the business. It was a company, a brokerage that specialized in selling digital businesses. And, I thought they had the right skill set to do it. And they found us a buyer. And we did not have like a bidding war and 10 people, or we had a buyer. So it wasn't ideal. It
Hmm.
wasn't your dream come true or anything. And it didn't like make me get, a 10x return because there was a bidding war. But we had a
Hmm.
successful exit. I got like a 3.5x multiple on it. And this is the other thing to know about paid community. Paid community is recurring revenue business, and buyers love recurring revenue businesses. It's another reason to love it. It's another
Hmm.
reason every software is now SaaS, is that software is that recurring revenue businesses are very predictable. And yeah, it's just a predictable revenue stream, and buyers love it.
Really. Yeah, you can project into basically infinity, right? Yeah, and let's dive a little bit more into your exit. What prompted you for your decision to sell? Like, was it logical and emotional? Like, just kind of curious what brought you to this decision to sell.
It was the convergence of a lot of things, a lot of different elements.
Mm,
Definitely burning out and feeling like I had 1,500 needy children, and it was a lot, to just I kind of felt inappropriate level responsible for them. This was sort of a hobby gone mad business. It was really a passion project that grew into a kind of a business, and it was hard for me to stop caring about everybody's success and stuff, and I was just kinda toast after 12 years of it. I also felt like I felt a sense of an ending in that I felt I had taught what I'd come to teach,
Mm,
was that I felt like all of the things I know are in a course in the den.
mm,
I talked about having that, "Oh, they need to learn this, they need to learn this." Like, I kind of had felt like I had a complete set of fundamentals for anyone to use. I was tired. I'm old. My broker was like, "Oh, we need this clause and that clause, and we need a non-compete so you don't start a competing business." And I was like, "Honey, I'm not starting a competing business. You probably work with a lot of founders who are 37 or 43, and I was 60, I think, when I started selling it." So it was more like, this is my retirement plan because I want to
mm,
sell. I wanted to move into another phase of my life. Last kid graduating
totally.
high school, we wanted to sell the house and downsize and travel more. And, it was like, this is my life's going a different direction now. And like, this phase is over. I'd also come to realize that many, many founders don't run their businesses. They just found businesses and 18 months later, they sell it pre-revenue. They sell it early on, that I was the fool
Mhm,
who stuck around and actually ran the thing forever, you know,
totally.
but that I didn't have to. I could take an exit and, if we downsized, lowered our net, it would all be cool. I just felt like it was a
New
lot of
chapter.
the convergence of many things, and yeah,
Mhm.
turning 60, approaching 60, it was like, yeah, I need to I wanna chill out more,
Yeah,
and
makes
not be
sense.
waking up at 6 a.m. every morning going, what, that, oh my God, I've already missed 3 hours of the Twitter cycle, it just,
Mm.
yeah, I was ready to take a break from all
Definitely. And I have another question out of curiosity. So when you started thinking to sell, how long did it take for you to get to that initial offer from the time that you had that like I'm ready to let go? And obviously you talked about
that.
bringing in like a business consultant and also that you needed to do P&Ls. Just out of curiosity, in order for you to get your business completely in line and ready to sell, what was that length of
That
time?
I think that all started like a year or 2 before I actually signed a brokerage agreement. When you do that, you have to hand the broker a chunk of money,
Mm.
of upfront money, and I was like, "Oh, didn't know that."
Yeah.
Um, and that was
It's
kind
not
of a
like a real
pushback
estate
for
business.
me. Yeah, it's not like a real estate sale. And I think we spent about 18 months on stuff before I signed with, so it was coming down the track kind of in my mind, for about 18 months before I sent the money to the broker. And I don't think it was that long. I feel like that was fall, and by December we had some people looking at it, and then other people. We had an offer, and Writer's Digest or somebody was like wanted to look at it, but they were like, "We're really busy now. We want to look in a few months." And I was like, "Well, I
Mm.
don't want to sit around waiting for you to feel like looking at it. That doesn't sound very enthusiastic."
Right?
So, yeah, we started working, and so this is the depths of COVID winter to set the scene. This is like winter 2020, 2021. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
was
dark
never in a
times.
room. I was never in a room with these people, and they were in Texas and were in that ice storm thing where
Hmm,
the Texas
the power.
infrastructure totally
Yep.
failed and the power was out for weeks. And right after it closed, they couldn't transfer assets or do anything. So it was a very bizarre and it was a dark and stormy night, Colin. And our house on Lake Washington had a basement apartment, and I moved into it. There was a lot of family BS going on at the time. And I was like, yeah, I cannot.
Mhm.
I'm just going to go down here and crunch numbers round the clock for this buyer, and I'll come out of this cave when this is over. Literally, I like went to the store, got my own food, put
Mhm.
it in my own fridge, and I was like in a sale bubble, and that may seem really that it probably seems super crazy now, but the thing is, when you're selling the business, you have 2 full-time jobs. Selling the business is a full-time job. They're
Mhm.
constantly asking you for things, you gotta do things, go find stats, do this, crunch some numbers.
Mhm.
What's the,
Yep.
what's the average length of stay a person stays in the den? Tell me. How well do these Facebook ads convert? They're just constantly bombarding you with questions. And and I didn't know the answers to these kinds of questions. So I had to go sick my team on all this and stuff. And in the middle of this, we learned that the accountants I had hired were just idiots and all of the numbers had to be redone and the business was revalued lower. So that was brutal. Brutal.
Mhm.
You think you're getting X and you're finding out you're getting 3/4 of X. And then we had to decide if we wanted to still go or wait. And I felt like I was already so far down the rabbit hole. It was sort of like when we adopted our first adopted kid. We were like, if this birth mom doesn't give us this kid, we're never doing this again. We're not going to adopt. That's
Mm.
it. We're done. Because this is so emotionally intense that we can't do it again. That's exactly how I felt about the sale. I felt like I can't start over with another buyer and go through this all again. Like, I'm so burned out. Because, yeah, so meanwhile, you have to be full time running the business because sales can't go down, revenue can't go down. Your
Totally.
numbers, you can it takes several months, and those several months, the numbers coming in have to look great, so you're working 2 full-time jobs. So that's why I ended up like locked in a closet doing this because I couldn't do the third job of being a mom and a wife. And I was like, no, goodbye. I mean, it was so, so nuts. Luckily, I have the world's most supportive spouse, obviously. So whatever I've ever said, it's like, I think I should start a new business. He's like, yeah, you should. He's never said, I don't know what you want to spend what. He's never ever said anything negative about anything I wanted to do in business. He's like
That's
super,
awesome.
he's amazing. Yeah, he's an amazing
That's so
person.
cool.
And I know
It
so
really
many
is.
women who are like, "Well, my husband says we don't have the budget for this." I'm like, "You ask your husband if you can do it?" It was like so anyway, it's a whole nother podcast right there.
Yeah. Totally.
Women and
Totally.
their attitudes around entrepreneurship. But
Yes.
yeah, so it was an intense roller coaster ride, and I was assured that this buyer I did get a decent amount of upfront. I was happy with how the deal was structured. I did get a lot of the money on close and not a lot of earnout, which you may know many people never receive the earnout
Mm.
end of that for various
Can
reasons.
you can you dive into that a little bit more, just in case if anyone listening doesn't know what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, they say I'm going to pay you $1 million and you're going to get 500 of it now. And then over the next 2 years, you're going to do a service contract for us. And if income stays the same, you're going to get this. And if it goes up, you're going to get this. And if it goes down, you're going to get less. And if you don't meet X and Y targets, you don't get X and Y payouts. So there's
Mm.
all kind of back end structure in sale deals that you want to be very wary of because I gather that in general, the statistics show that many people do not get the earn outside and that you should assume that the money you're getting on sale is all you should ask yourself if you would be satisfied with only that because you may not get more. So
Mm-hmm.
I was assured by my broker, that my buyer would not flip my company, that they were totally into it. And in 90 days, they flipped it.
Of course.
So whole nother story there I could do a whole podcast about. So I had no control over who that buyer was. I did not choose that buyer. And I ended up in another service contract for that buyer, but it locked my earnout
Mm.
because they sold. So I did get every dime. So that was
Got
the
it.
upside, was that all those payments had to happen.
So,
And
with your sale contract, it sounds like you were still working for the den then after it ended up closing.
yes, and many, many people strive to not do this, and you should, because this is like watching somebody dismember a baby of yours,
Mm-hmm.
and
Of
you have to stand right next to them and watch it happen. It is incredibly painful. They are going to change everything about how the business operates
course.
because it's not their passion project, love child, you know, it's
Absolutely.
just a business to them, and they're gonna yeah, the first thing they did was raise the price way up, and I was like, "Oh my god, oh, writers are so broke. No, that's such a terrible thing to do." Just and it rolled from there. Just they were gonna run the business in a totally different way, which with 5 years of time between me and it, I totally get now. Like, yeah, it's just business. And they were going to make the decisions that were right for how they wanted to run the business. And but it's horribly painful. And you're getting paid generally a pittance to do what you used to get paid,
Mm.
a very large sum every month to do. And it feels like sort of return to wage slavery. It's just unpleasant on every level. I don't know anyone who said it was a great experience. And the thing is, what they want to do, thankfully I didn't have this, but what they want to do is earning milestones to like where you have to hit different targets. And the thing is, you have no control over whether they hit those targets or not. You
No,
no longer
because they're
have your
changing
hands
the
on the
business.
levers. You don't have
Yep,
your hands on the levers of the business anymore. And yet your income is tied to how they're going to operate the business. So you want to avoid this if you can. It's
definitely.
not good.
Yeah. Great advice. Very, very great advice. Out of curiosity, how did you handle that experience personally? Because you described the business being torn apart like a baby. What did you do personally in order to keep yourself together and push through this?
Well, besides sending them detailed, angry emails explaining exactly why what they were doing was wrong, which they would then ignore,
Uh
but
huh.
it would at least allow me to vent. Luckily, I had kind of built my book ghostwriting business. As I was in this ramp up to sale, I got my first 3 books that I was working on and at a time, at once, all at once, at 3 at a time. And so I had other income and other work going on and, other things going on in my life, busy remodeling a kitchen and, taking some trips in the RV and starting to try that out. And, yeah, it's good to have other activities. If you're like, I'm just selling this and I'm going to retire and kick back and do nothing, and I'm just going to do this little earn out contract and you have nothing else on your plate, that might be really awful. That could be a bad situation. Could be real bad news because, yeah, all you can do is think about like, no, oh my God, what's happening? It just, I don't know anyone who's like, and they did great by my business. I think we know that a large proportion of major M&A gets unwound later, or they end up writing off the entire cost of it, or
Mm-hmm.
it often does not go well. So
No,
everyone should be aware of that. What you want to do
definitely.
is stop watching. Don't go on the website. Don't look at how they're redoing it. Just don't.
Yeah,
You're not going to like it.
it's yeah.
Be
When
like,
it's
I've sold and I have moved on. And people who know you from it will come and complain to you and be like, they're doing this. And I'll be like,
not my problem.
I'm out. I'm out. Yeah. Don't look at me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's really hard. It's
definitely.
really like it's like a death in the family,
Hmm.
really. It's a thing to go through, and I know there's a lot of business coaches that work with people on this transition,
Hmm.
particularly to retirement, if you're not, like, young and you're gonna do more startups. And, like, yeah, what is that next act? And I knew it could be hard because my first staff writing job was covering home improvement retailing for a trade magazine. I did 100 business trips all over the US for that and talked to a lot of hardware store, a lot of mom and pop hardware store owners,
Mm.
and they would always retire and they would go on a world cruise for a year and they would come home and they would buy another hardware store because they missed talking to customers and they missed being that guy who owned something.
Totally.
They missed being in business and
Absolutely.
they were bored. And I guess the same thing happened to me. So I also flunked retirement.
I love that. But
But
yeah, but that
yeah.
also takes me to the our next section is life on the road. So you got to buy your RV from your sale, and this is like one of my favorite parts about your story is so you
Yeah, I'm here
decided to yeah,
I'm in the RV. Here we are. We're
exactly.
driveway camping right now. There's nothing. Usually there's like, some mountain or, something interesting outside, but
Totally.
right now I'm just in a neighborhood in Seattle. So,
Definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
and okay, hold up. If you've listened this far and you still haven't subscribed, what are you even doing here? I'm out here losing sleep, drinking way too much coffee, and editing like a madman. The least you can do is hit that button. No, seriously. Go ahead, I'll wait. Awesome. Thank you very much. There it is. You're officially part of the Startup and Shut Up fam. Let's go back to it. I'm curious, what sparked that decision between you and your husband to make that decision about the purchasing of the RV?
So here's what happened, Colin. So we were like, yeah, we're going to sell the big 5-bedroom house and downsize. Our kids are moving out and we don't want to rattle around a big house by ourselves. That's weird. And we don't want to pay house taxes in Seattle in the 7 years we owned the house. Went, wait, yeah. And insurance on the house. Like the expenses were insane. And as much as we loved the neighborhood we were in, we were like, this is not the right house for us because we were right on, steps from the lake. That was pretty awesome. Steps from a world-class bike trail around the lake, but we knew we wanted to downsize. And then we looked at it other and said, what does that look like and where do we want to downsize to? And we had no answer. There was no agreement. My husband, fishing cabin in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, and what will I be doing all day in this scenario? And what synagogue will I be attending?
Hmm.
Like, yeah, so we have a lot of factors, good outdoor activity, fishing, hiking, paddling, want access to intelligent people like a college town. I need Jewish life. And there was nowhere immediately that we can afford. And there was nowhere that immediately met that criteria.
Hmm.
So we bought the RV to go travel around and see if we could figure out where that place was kind of
Mm.
the initial premise. We went on an initial tryout trip while we still had the house for 3 months and did not find it. And we eventually went, we're living in it. This is the downsizing. This is it.
Hmm.
We should just sell the house, get a storage unit, put our crap in the storage unit, and do this. And
Hmm.
until we find another thing emerges that is the thing where we want to be. And part of the awkwardness is for us is we're in that awkward phase where the kids have left, but there are no grandkids.
Mm. Okay.
Once, even though we have one that's 33, if someone might produce one, I would want to live where it is.
Mm.
So if I buy something now, I'm just going to probably have to sell that and because I'm going to go live where that is.
Got it.
So we thought maybe we could do 5 years of this and maybe by then we'll know the answer. Either there'll be a
Hmm.
grandchild or we'll just have figured out where we want to buy or so that's kind of how it evolved. I mean, we love to camp and we have been going to family camp for 20 years on Labor Day weekend. And, Larry grew up going to a fishing ranch in Colorado and just we are outdoorsy people who like to get out and be in nature and that's something that like was when we initially met, that we had in common.
It's so cool.
And our kids had not turned out to be good travelers, particularly our younger two. My joke was they only couldn't transition from anything to anything. So they couldn't be taken out of their routine. Traveling, it just
Hmm.
did not go well.
Totally.
And so we kind of didn't do the kind of travel we imagined we would camp. We'd take them to Europe, did not happen. And so we had a lot of pent up travel energy to expend. And this allowed us to do it in COVID in a time where we did not have to go through airports,
Hmm.
did not have to be in crowds. We were
Hmm.
in our RV. Every 10 days, we'd strap on a mask, dive bomb through a grocery store, grab some more groceries. That was it. We didn't get
Totally.
sick. We didn't eat in restaurants, and it was great.
That's
And
awesome.
we saw the country. We were, going lots of places, doing lots of things. Did the whole Oregon coast, saw lots of lighthouses. We were having a great time.
It's so cool.
And we were like, this has a lot of advantages over airport travel, we just felt. And
And
we're
there's
those
no
people
property taxes.
and no property taxes. Hello. Yeah. No property taxes and no um, property insurance.
Mm.
And yeah, there's a lot of advantages to this. And just if it's getting smoky here, we can just drive away.
Totally.
In a climate changing world, the idea of
Hmm.
buying a property in a place was getting less and less appealing to us. Everyone in Seattle retires to like Phoenix and Tucson and
Hmm.
all down there. And we went down there and looked around and we were like, retire to a place that it's 118 in the summer? No, thank you.
No,
Yeah. So this is why the quest continues.
it's cool.
And more, the idea of staying mobile and taking all the house profits and investing it in the meanwhile,
Hmm.
at which we've done very well with. Yeah, that just seems like a way to be liquid in case I'd say want to leave the country
Hmm.
and live abroad, which is something we're also looking at. Do we want to live
Totally.
in Portugal or Mexico or
Hmm.
maybe we want to live in somewhere else for 5 years or something or
It's
3.5 or
very
something.
minimalist.
It's very minimalist, and that has been amazing. For me, this is amazing. America, you just do not need the stuff you think you need. You
Hmm.
don't. You don't need it.
Totally.
You
Yep.
need so little stuff. It's amazing. You can't believe how little you actually need. I have a
It's
like a
freeing.
I have a dorm refrigerator and 2 burners and a microwave and a foodie grill, and off I go, and Starlink. Like, these are the things you need, and some clothes. You just don't need a lot of stuff. I feel like we've all been sold a bill of goods about how much stuff we need to
Mhm.
show we're successful and
Mhm.
stuff, and like I did it. I had the things. I had the big house. I went on the fancy vacations. I did the things, and it did not make my family happier. It to
Mhm.
have the big expensive everything. You don't need it. It's a crock. Your things own you.
Yep. Yep.
And now my things don't own me, and I couldn't be happier about it. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's very, very cool. And then you're also running a couple of businesses as well out of your RV, and you travel,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
how do you balance the unpredictability of travel with business consistency?
Well, first off, I don't do anything on that's got a tight deadline. I mean, my business
Mm,
is my business to run.
totally.
I schedule some events. I make sure I'm somewhere I can connect to the internet at those times that I've said I will show up for something. And
Hmm.
that has meant pulling over into like a grocery store parking lot and or a park and sitting my Starlink on a park bench and stopping for an hour and doing a thing and then continuing. And we have done that. Um, and I don't write blog posts for people anymore. I don't do short form content where
Mm,
there's tight deadlines and, oh, we need this week. I'm ghostwriting books and the deadlines are all very chill and fungible. All of my experts travel as well. They either are going on vacation or they speak all over the world or whatever. And if I'm like,
hmm.
you know what, the next week is kind of a mess for me. The week after, they're like, sure. Yeah, obviously it's taken me a lot of career years to get to the point where I have this control. But at this point, yeah, I don't have a lot of problem with it. And I'm just, yeah, building my new community as it,
That's
it's
awesome.
growing. It's just kind of in a beta. It's sort of an
Hmm.
experiment, and I
Hmm.
think more people should think about what they're doing as like a mad scientist experiment because it allows you to be a little bit dispassionate about it and kind of just be like, well, I'm starting a
Hmm.
YouTube channel. Let's see if that drives traffic. You're just trying experiments and like, don't be like deeply emotionally, personally wounded if they don't work out. Like
Totally.
this is all business experimentation.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
so far I've had nothing but upside from the travel because obviously I am happy.
Hmm.
I am happy. I am mostly places that are quiet and I have a beautiful view of something usually,
Hmm.
at least the half of the year that we're out on the road, and I'm very productive as a result. And when if as soon as you finish this, you can go paddle out onto the Colorado River and see fish swimming in the water and stuff. You
It's so
tend to just
nice.
want to get your shit done, and it concentrates the mind. You're like, I want to get out of here and go party.
Yeah.
Hit the paddleboard. Yeah, so I don't know, it's worked out great so far. That tryout trip, I wrote 3 books on that trip.
That's so cool.
You know, yeah,
It's
it gives
amazing what happens when you're
you get it
happy.
done. Yeah, when you're just happy and getting to get a lot of enjoyment out of your life, you also could get a lot of good ideas for your business
Totally.
and just feel a lot of joy in the work-life balance that you have and, yeah.
Absolutely. And you've answered a ton of my questions just openly. One last one for the RV. What was your most memorable work on the road experience?
I don't know. I feel like most recently, being in Valley of Fire State Park. That park is amazing. It's near Vegas, and it has these rocks with like hieroglyphics in it, and stuff. And it's like you're on the moon. It's a very otherworldly landscape, and just to be able to be I did some calls for Community Growth Academy while I was there, and you could kind of see these crazy rocks out the window. And I feel like that was sort of a peak experience. It was just
Hmm.
like, yes, I finally got all my ducks in a row here. I'm helping people make money, which is my core thing. And I'm also going to just leave here and go on an amazing hike, that's like I'm on Mars or something.
Hmm. Totally. That's so cool. Thank you for sharing, Carol. That brings us to your shut up moment. So this is the part of the show where I ask every guest to share their shut up moment. That's the time when the world told you to sit down, shut up, or give up, but you didn't. So what was that defining moment for you, and how did you push past it?
Yeah, well, I think of it as happening after I sold, and I was like one of the other
Mm,
reasons I sold, Colin, is because I was starting to feel like I looked too old to show up online. I didn't want to have to do it anymore because I didn't want to look at my own face. I was like, "Ugh!" part of
I'm
this
sorry you
was that
felt that.
part of this was that my hair was falling out, a lot of it.
Mm,
A lot of I had great big empty triangles of hair. It was, a lot of stress. It's
mhm,
stress running a business, and I was getting
totally.
old, and my dad was completely bald at age 29, so bad genes for baldness, and I don't know, I felt like this online live showing up at it with your face, that's a game for the young. That's like 20-something girls with really long hair, lips that don't have any wrinkles in them, and they don't know anything, but, like, that's the future.
Mhm,
And that was one of the reasons I wanted to sell, and that I felt like, "I'm done with online business, I'm just gonna write books for my authors," and, like, I'm just sort of done being a business mogul. And then the longer I sat with that, the more I started to rebel against it and
mm.
think, "Screw that cultural
Yeah,
noise.
that sounds like you.
I'm not gonna abandon the internet to a bunch of dumb 20-somethings who don't know nothing. People need information. People need
Totally.
the expertise that older people have.
Mhm,
And like also there are a lot of older people who don't have enough money to retire, who need a business to operate in retirement, and they want to learn from people like me who are
mhm,
in their demographic. And I
definitely.
just started to kind of rebel. And that was around the time that my mentor was like, you should teach paid community. And I was like, yeah, I should.
Mhm,
I should do it.
it's
I can
awesome.
start a YouTube channel. I can show up online. I can find out how to light myself and show up in a way that I feel comfortable with,
Mhm,
and you can also not show up with your face. My
mhm.
mentor, who I mentioned, I don't think I mentioned that he can only move his face due to
Wow.
spinal muscular atrophy.
Huh?
Yeah, he has nothing from here down.
Mhm.
And he shows up and runs his own events. Doesn't have an assistant, doesn't have a showrunner, does it
That's so
all,
cool.
operates it all himself. And it's like part of me was like, well, if he can do it,
Yeah, I could do it too.
what is my excuse? And just yeah, I don't know. I just started to be like, I do have more to teach, and this is a diverse world we live in, and it can't all be about young, great-looking babes and,
Mhm,
25-year-old bros who are working out. And like, no, there's more to the
mhm.
world and to what people need than that. I still have more to contribute, and maybe I'm crazy. We'll find out. But I'm glad I launched it, and I'm, so gratified by the successes we've already had in the community. One of our
Mhm,
our first member to launch is that it has 150K a year community income, that he put together in, like, 3 months flat. And so just knowing that I've kind of still got that power to help people make more money.
mhm,
By teaching this model. What's really fun about this is that now I'm teaching people who have all kinds of different expertise. Like I was in one vertical before, just like
yes.
freelance writers.
Yep.
Our communities that we're launching out of Community Growth Academy are all over the map. Yeah, they're in investing for retirement and moving to Europe and clean eating. And so some of them are like coaches and consultants who want to teach one to many now instead of one to one and want that recurring income. And some of them are like mine. They're like kind of personal passion projects, that just things that they're into in their lives that they want to coalesce community around. And that's
Mhm.
super fun for me to kind of be able to reach into a lot of different spaces and enable people to earn doing what they love and help people live better lives and, kind of multiply their impact beyond what they would just sort of teaching people one at a time.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that us as Americans kind of struggle with is that sense of community because we have such big houses, we have such big land, we want to keep our distance from our neighbors.
Yes.
You'll see them in the grocery store and church on Sunday, but then you don't interact with them. But then we have this overwhelming sense that something's missing, so we fill it up with stuff.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought this up. So glad. Yeah. Community life for a lot of people is not there. And they say that when people started putting the big mega swing sets in their backyards, and building their own pools, and your kids go play in your yard instead of going to the park where there's a big swing set and you meet the other parents. And that when we got it started getting the McMansions and the big, you have your own, in-home theater and that, we all each became our own bubble, and look at me, I've got this stuff, and you've got your own big swing set, and look at me, I've got all this stuff. But it was so lonely. It's like,
Hmm.
and never were more people taking antidepressants, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. And the other thing is that in the space I operate in, helping people earn more money in their business thing, often people are doing business in a way that no one in their family, extended family, town, network really understands.
Hmm.
That was magical in freelance writers, and people would be like, "Oh my God, I'm in this small town in Kansas, and everyone just keeps asking me when I'm going to get a job." They don't understand the whole concept of operating your own home business. And that's why online community is exploding. That's why investors are pouring money into school, because this is how a lot of us find community that really nourishes us now, is that we need to connect with the people who share our passion, who are located all over the world.
Definitely.
They're not in our town, necessarily. Those people don't get us. And that is powering so much entrepreneurship and innovation, that ability to learn from people who aren't necessarily right near you. And that was always super uplifting and exciting to me. I have people in Europe and in India and stuff in Community Growth Academy. And just that power for me to like sit in my van wherever and teach people all over the world and help them live a better life. It's a great time to be alive. Just,
Totally.
we are lucky to live in such a time when we
Absolutely.
can we can do that. So it's exciting to be back in that.
Yeah. I could definitely see that passion on your face.
Yeah.
So yeah, very cool. So fun fact, according to Gallup, 77% of Gen Z say they want to be their own boss or to start their own business. 42% also want to invent something that changes the world. With that entrepreneurial mindset, I believe we're going to see a massive rise in Gen Z founded crowdfunding campaigns in the coming years. And Carol, why do you think Gen Z is more interested in being their boss than any other generation before
Well, partly because tools enable that now.
them? Hmm.
It's like when I wanted to be a rock star back in the 80s, you had to get a record deal to reach an audience. There were these gatekeepers, and there was no other way really to do it. And now people just put their stuff on Spotify, and if it gets an audience, they make money and they're a working musician. And the same is true in business. Like working from home, that used to be really complex and difficult. I know because I've
Hmm.
been doing it since it was.
Yep.
And, since, my boss had to physically, like, bring a bunch of equipment over to my house so I could work at home. And, it is physically possible, and the barrier to entry in terms of what it costs is going down and down and down. When I ran the den, I was spending 10 grand a month and more on back-end support. Now
Hmm.
I pay school $97 a month, and everything works all the time, and nothing ever needs updating, and like I have no technical issues. This
That's
is
awesome.
a huge transformation in how easy it is to get a business online and to find customers all over the world. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be who's in your town and I have to start a, cleaning franchise or whatever. I have to mow lawns, and my sphere is limited by kind of what are the opportunities in my geography. Now that that's gone, you know, there's a lot of other opportunity that wasn't there before.
Totally. I
And
completely
also, of
agree with
course,
you.
you're talking about a generation of digital nomads to
Hmm.
whom this stuff is like breathing. It's not like
Yep.
me, where I'm calling my son. My phone isn't synced with the laptop again. Can you help me? Like these are people who just know how to use technology.
Definitely.
So, I have a friend who just went off to UC Santa Cruz, and, he's already won an award for creating an app and while he was in high school. And so, these are just people who have the tools at their fingertips and know how to use them. But
Definitely.
those stats don't surprise me. And I hope it happens because we need answers to the big problems of this world. So,
Yeah. Cool. And Also, at the same time, you also wrote a book on crowdfunding for Shopify.
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and your experience regarding crowdfunding?
Well, I am a Prosper investor, and I have actually been involved in covering that space since Prosper first came to America. I don't even know when. It was in 8 or something. So I've kind of been in that story all along, crowdfunding. And, you know, it's like investing used to be much like the record deal. You know, there was this limited pool and you had
Mhm,
to be in a certain way, and investors had to have so much assets, and there were all these rules around it that have kind of gone by the wayside now so that people can invest in people. And I think people should do it with a lot of caution. Don't I wouldn't be putting
mhm,
money into that you can't afford to lose, much like investing in crypto or investing in as an angel investor in a
mhm,
startup, which is basically what you're doing in crowdfunding. I know, angels who say that, don't put the grocery money in this,
mhm,
because you don't know how it's going to pay off. Or be diverse, make many small investments because some will hit and some will not. Yeah,
definitely.
but I love what I've been seeing in that space and how the rules have evolved to excuse me, to make it easier to make that happen. And I know you're all involved in that.
Yes. Yeah, kind of curious. And that brings me to my next question. How has crowdfunding evolved since you first started observing it?
Well, so much. I feel like peer to peer, where you were investing in like somebody needed to do a home repair or something, was sort of the first stuff that we got because the investing in business world was more regulated,
Mhm,
and it took more time for that to be changed to where you could afford it. Now, I just feel like there's so many different platforms and ways to go about this, and people should really kind of look around, and because they all operate it a little differently, they all kind of have a
mhm,
different flavor of how they do it. But I mean, I know people who write Kickstarter pages, who write those pitch pages now, because of my freelance writing world side. And I think there's just a lot of opportunity in there to maybe find the backing you need to do
mhm,
something. I guess I feel like the biggest wins in this model are people who create physical products that are very trendy, that are like cutting edge, trendy stuff. And they're like, we're making a watch, and you're the only one who's going to get that watch, and it's going to do this and that. And then you just get the funding to manufacture it from the
mhm,
people who are gonna buy it, and you don't have to put out the money to make it, and then you wait to collect the money. It's just like a great model. It's just a great model where you're just doing everything with other people's money. It's
mhm.
fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Really kind of a risk-free way to operate if you can get it dialed in and get that kind of audience.
Definitely.
But once again, kinda goes back to audience building, the same thing in doing
Mhm,
a paid community launch. You gotta have people who will buzz about that amazing watch you're making, and get people
absolutely.
to you still have to drive people to your campaign to get the buy-in.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're working with like individuals for their home business of some sort, right? Are you aware of any crowdfunding spaces that are for that little person with the smaller business concept? Because
I
like
don't know.
Kickstarter is like really big for
Yeah.
for a company to be able to raise money for a product or something like that, right? But like the people that are on your community, where could they go in order to be able to raise like a little bit of capital in order
Hmm.
to expand or grow?
Boy, I don't know. It's been a few years since I did that book. There's probably new models I haven't even seen
Mhm.
out there. There's so many incidents. So that's an interesting idea of like, yeah. And that's another reason I sold the den is it needed investment.
Mm. Mhm.
That was my other option was like invest in someone who will pay for us to have an app of the den and to kind of take it into the next century of tech, which it wasn't in, and make it work on mobile better. And yeah, I felt like that investor kind of didn't exist, and that I didn't know that I wanted to go that route. I don't
Mhm.
know how many like sort of solopreneur type businesses think in terms of getting outside investment.
Mhm.
That's an interesting
Totally.
question though.
Mhm.
I like how you're thinking. Like maybe that's a space that nobody's in.
Yeah, as far as my research, nobody's in that. That's where
Yeah.
Pure Founder comes in to be able to help that out, because there's just so many people are starting to have their solo businesses, right? And the economy is changing so drastically, and AI is just
Yeah.
going to continue to make companies and corporations more efficient. So they're not going to need as many people. So people are going to have to figure out how to create their own income, right?
I feel like starting an agency that trains people to work with AIs. That's the next business idea. Like
Totally.
the people who know how to ask in them the right prompts and the people who are willing to clean up their hallucinations and
Hmm.
that's the job opening now. But most of the writers I know are not in on that job, not interested in that being their next career.
Definitely. And then I want to be able to touch on Community Growth Academy. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? And of course, you had the history of the community, but kind of curious what the light bulb moment for you to be able to start Community Growth Academy.
Just that there's so much to know that it was suited to the community model is suited to a situation where what you're trying to do is fairly complex and the space
Hmm.
is evolving and
Hmm.
changing, not static. So there's always new emerging things you might need to know about. New tools are coming out, new players are entering the space. And what I realized is that, of course, I'm kind of a dinosaur of paid community because I was in it back before these platforms and everything. And that there's a lot to know to launch successfully and to operate and grow the community and, get the engagement and make it successful and keep it thriving. And so I thought it was suited to the model and it was so, fun to put together a course that kind of walked everybody through and unpack all of that knowledge out of my brain and put it in a form that I could hand to people and be like, yeah, here's how you fire a member who's a problem. And here's how, because you get some where it's like they gotta go. They're harshing the mellow.
Hmm.
They are off topic. They are bizarre. They are selling. They're in everyone's DMs trying to sell them something. There's a problem, and you've got to get rid of them. How to develop content for it, how to drive engagement for it, how to keep it evolving, how to work on retention, make sure you have reasons that people don't leave. And, it was just, I don't know, it just sort of wrote itself. It was just like my brain was exploding with all of that info and it just all burst out. And what surprised me about this launch was how much crossover there was, how many
Hmm.
freelance writers I didn't know were thinking about that freelance writers that I know from my past community, I didn't know were thinking about maybe doing something similar to what I did, had watched me
Mm.
do what I did and was like, yeah, I should do something like that. And I have a passion for X and like maybe I could do community around it. Because I want to say at least half the members that I have known me from that community. So that was totally a surprise to me. I thought this is a whole new audience. But,
Totally.
everybody has a business idea up their sleeve. I think a lot of people
Hmm.
are like, and especially as you say, Colin, right now they're thinking, what's next for me
Hmm.
in this space? And a lot of writers are having that thought right now
Definitely.
as they look at if they're doing short form content, like they should be thinking that because a lot of that cheap junk content stuff is going to be written by AI. So what are you
Hmm.
going to do next? Maybe
Yep.
you want to move beyond just being you working for you and you want to start a business that
Hmm.
would have a bigger impact and could potentially generate more income for you. So
Definitely. Yeah, and what advice would you give for that person that is thinking about their business or their passion, and they're still afraid to kind of pull the trigger?
just try it. These days, it's like you can stand up a business with so little investment, be willing to invest in yourself. People are they're willing to buy an expensive car, they're willing to, you know, splurge on all kinds of things. And when it comes to their professional development and investing in their success, they're all, oh, $300 for a course, and it's like, oh my God. My mentor, John, says he tries to take like a $10,000 core mastermind or course every year just to see what they're doing. just to see how they run it, just to
Totally.
hang out, and absorb more knowledge from someone else who's operating at a good level, And I'm sure some of the people who've joined Community Growth Academy, that may be what it's about for them. They're like, I know Carol builds businesses and I want to build one and I want to just kind of hang out and come alongside and get in behind the curtain and see what's happening. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's all a write off, I said that to someone and they were like, oh, it is? And I'm like, hello. Yes. If you're investing in your business, yeah, this is all a tax write off. Like,
Business
take a
101.
flyer on yourself. You're never going to say, on your deathbed, you're not going to be like, well, I'm sorry I tried to start some businesses and make an independent life for myself. That is not what we'll be saying.
Nope.
That will not be it. You won't have a lot of regrets over that money. And the thing is that you learn something, even if it's not what you thought you were going to learn, even if it's not that you don't always learn or end up doing the thing you thought you were going to do. Like I thought I was going to write a book and
Mm-hmm.
become a millionaire. And instead I found a better model for
Totally.
how to get my knowledge out and help people. Yeah, take a flyer on it and try and be open-minded about what you could get out of what you're learning because yeah, it's going to take you different directions than you think. But owning your own business is the best. I had 3 kids, 2 of whom had a variety of special needs, and to live a life where I never missed a teacher meeting, a school play, a soccer game, and anything ever, and I would always look in the back of the room at the end of that holiday program to see those parents in their suits come running in the door and realizing that they missed their kid's thing and that
Mm-hmm.
look on their faces. And that was never me. And you won't ever regret it. Just, that control over your time and your life is so worth it. And yeah, corporate America has never been a crappier place to hang out than it is right now. Eh, you know, I
Everyone's so
mean
scared.
my parents were of the generation where you got a job at a great company, you'd be there your
Yep.
whole life and nobody changed jobs, and that's all so long gone. Everyone I would get in the den would be like, "I've been laid off 3 times and I've had it. I'm done working for the man," and
Mm-hmm.
that is only accelerating. The idea of like that a job gives you stability in life. I thought that was patently false 20 years ago when
Mm-hmm.
I got back into freelancing because all it means is one person has complete power over your income and your life and what you're
Yep.
going to do.
Absolutely.
And that is not safe. That is not security and that is not safety. 1,500 clients who, if some of them leave, it's like whatever. That's the model you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
where no one person has that power over your life. So it is my thrill to bring that to people, that I am so happy to have spent the last like 20, 25 years doing nothing but enabling that for
Totally.
people.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. We're just at time, and it was really really awesome to be able to lean in and share all your knowledge as well. I feel like we can continue talking for like hours and hours. And then I personally need to join your new startup as well, your community, because
Come on down.
it's talking to exactly what I'm building. I'm building a community for entrepreneurs to be able to crowdfund their first $500. So,
I
Carol,
actually wasn't thinking of that, but you're now the 4th podcast I've been on where the founder has a secret agenda that they are thinking about community themselves. So this is starting to be a pattern. But really, I think if you're doing a course, you should be. I know there's a lot of gurus out there saying you should put up a course and it'll just run on autopilot and you'll be rich. And I'm here to say that's BS.
hmm
What you need to do is wrap it in community where people can talk to each other and talk to you and get support, and just community is the missing link in our lives right now on so many levels. And
definitely.
yeah, see what
Yeah,
you
that's
can foster and
yeah,
facilitate in this world that makes it better because it
yeah,
can make you a great income
yeah,
and
and
give you a lot of freedom.
yeah, and I'm really excited to be able to see how many lives it can change because the entire concept of Pure Founder is community learning and crowdfunding when you're ready, and to be able to leverage $500 to grow and pay it back to your funders, and then you have $2,500 to play with at your next level, and then 7,000.
Mm,
You could really
mm,
accelerate your business really fast in that kind of environment and having that
I
support. You'll definitely be hearing from me a lot more.
I'm here to help make that happen.
So, Carol, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your journalism to building, getting fired, right, and selling a 1,500 member community to RV living, and
Keep
how
meaning to
launching.
send that guy who fired me a thank you note. Yeah,
Yes,
I've
yes,
really
yes.
gotta get to that.
Yes, right after this, right? And then, and of course, congratulations on launching Community Growth Academy. And then for anyone that's listening and they want to connect with you, where should they go in order to connect with you and to work?
Community Growth Academy on School. Just go on School. It's SKOOL if you're not familiar with this platform, and search us up. And there is a link to my free case study that goes into great detail on how I built and sold the den, is linked right on the About page, right there.
Awesome. And then if you're on LinkedIn too, so just Carol Tice to be able to
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah.
Awesome. And are you anywhere else on the internet by chance?
I'm all in on LinkedIn. I actually
Okay,
sold my Twitter with the business when I sold Freelance Writer's
cool.
Den. I had a nice sized audience that I sold in, and I've never been happier to not be on it.
That's so cool. It's liberating.
Yeah, I'm delighted. But
Awesome.
yeah, I
Well,
feel like LinkedIn is where my people are, and so
yep,
that's where I hang out.
totally. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Carol. I'll let you get back to RV living and enjoying your wonderful day and continuing to build and
All
changing
right.
people's
Thanks so
lives.
much. Thanks for
Thanks,
having me,
Carol.
Colin. Bye.
Okay, real talk. Getting fired can feel like the end, but it can also be the spark that launches your next chapter. Carol proved that when she turned her firing into the start of a thriving entrepreneur career. And honestly, I get it. I was laid off on my birthday in March, and it could have been a low point, but instead it became the launch pad for this podcast and for Pure Founder. A wise person once told me, getting fired isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. It's your invitation to spread your wings and fly, even if you don't feel ready, because it's all about your perception. If this episode inspired you, take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it. It helps more dreamers find this show. And remember, if you're ready to fund your next big idea, head over to purefounder.com, grab your spot while lifetime access for the first 1,000 users is still open. Until next time, keep believing, keep building, and as always, start up or shut up.